positive feedback loop. Three, two, one.
Welcome back to Positive Feedback Loop, the show where we channel all the interesting stuff in the universe and talk about it for your pleasure. As always, I'm here with co-host Steph.
Hello, everyone.
And Ray.
Welcome back.
And I am your humble co-host, Luis. Welcome. Today, we're talking about a technology that's been growing in use, but hasn't made a lot of headlines since Google Glass. Of course, I'm talking about augmented reality, AR for short, a tech that most people know from apps like Pokemon Go, where it allows you to somewhat seamlessly put virtual objects and information in the real world. Like, for example, seeing your Pokemon on your kitchen table. And to talk a little bit about the past, present, and possible futures of AR, we are excited to be joined by friend of the show and co-founder of AR startup Screen Door Labs, Kari Wu. Hi, Kari.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be here.
So, Kari, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm the co-founder of Screen Door Labs. We created AR Rescue, which is an augmented reality software for team communication. And the very first user case is targeting boots on the ground. So think first responders like firefighters, police officers. After natural disaster happen, they can use the virtual data we provide them with to make real-time decisions.
Cool. That sounds really exciting. So have you had a chance to actually talk with a lot of these firefighter groups and policemen and that sort of environment and see their reactions to your technology?
Yeah, so we have been talking to many of them. And actually, how we started this company was when my co-founder Seth got a call from a police department saying that they need a software to share real-time drone feed. So we realized that they need video footage so much, and not just video footage from a drone. It could be from another officers, so they can always sync as a team.
So how would that work technologically? Do you have an example of a case where someone would use that software?
Yeah, so say after or during a wildfire, say here in California, a drone will be sent to the field, and officers will be on their way there. And the drone typically will arrive before officers do, so they can actually understand what's going on and the direction of the wind, how bad the situation is before they arrive. And once one person arrives, his video footage will be shared with the whole team as well. And the commander can make comments based on that. And he can also quickly say, hey, I want Commander A to see what Commander B is seeing. So he will be able to help as much as possible.
You mentioned seeing the feed.
Yeah.
So how exactly are people going to be seeing the feed? Is there like a laptop they bring with them on the field? Or how are you visualizing this working, especially in terms of like operating it? Like, because you're doing several things at once, especially if you're on the field and you're worried about someone shooting you, or God forbid, any other number of terrible situations.
Yeah, so now we're not talking about fighting crime. It's more for response to emergencies. So natural disasters, for example, and officers will be wearing AR glasses. So while they see those virtual objects, we provide them with, for example, 2D map, 3D map with geotags of everyone in their team or video footage, they can still see the real world. So it's adding a virtual layer in between your human eyes and the reality.
So are you guys actually creating the software that can analyze the land and analyze the plane and the people and all the things that have happened on the field and feeding it into some sort of software that allows for it to be easily digested via an augmented reality system? Because like, let's say a drone it's a video, it's just video. Is it like a 3D video? Like, how do you capture that?
So normally a drone videos will be a 2D video, and we stream that. It's like Skype video call, right? You can see whatever the drone is seeing. And with the drone feed, we can quickly create a 3D model under 7 minutes. And that will be a 3D like static model where we can show the geotags of each officers.
The drone has like a GPS in it, and it detects where it is and time, and then that's how you create that 3D map.
So the drones will have GPS trackers, or we can just mark it. by like an officer can mark it themselves. Say he send a drone to this locations, longitude, altitude, and share that on the map.
Interesting.
When I worked at MIT, I was placed on the emergency communications committee because I was in charge of social media. And whenever there was a huge emergency on campus, I was part of that communications. What do we say to the rest of campus? And everything was done on what's called a bridge, which was basically a conference call. So all you could hear was everybody who could be on the conference call and try not to talk over each other and also communicate with a large group of people with just audio, which is really hard to do, especially if you're also dealing with people on walkie-talkies in that kind of situation, or a satellite phone where you can't hear as clearly as you would, FaceTiming with your mom in a quiet room or something.
I feel like one of the things that's really interesting about this too is also the being able to, as you described, communicating when there's like a whole bunch of people and you're trying to establish where everyone is sounds really difficult. So being able to visualize where everyone else on your team is on a map fairly quickly seems like it'd be fairly helpful in a situation like that, especially a dangerous situation.
And what's definitely addressed is really critical because first responders, they once in a while will have some information to share, but they keep it to themselves because they're afraid that they block someone else. What if other people have even more critical information? But then you just ended up with many people have all those pieces not sync with each other. And that could give them a bigger picture of what's going on. They could have changed the strategy that could have saved more lives.
So the AR glasses, they have the ability to see digital things in real space, but does it also has a camera, I imagine, so it's also recording at the same time. So you're having that multi-camera, multi-dimensional view of the affected area all at the same time and creating more high-resolution feed of what's really happening on the field. That's really interesting.
Yeah, most AR glasses comes with a front-facing camera, so you don't need to consciously know that I want to record this to record it. It's always streaming. And for the eyepiece, now we're targeting using a one-eye display, and when you don't need it, you can flip the whole unit, including the AR display and the camera on top, so it's not blocking your field of view.
That's actually, that brings me to an interesting question, at least to me, which is, how do you decide what information is too much information? When you're on the field and you're trying to, or at least what feedback you've received on this, I would imagine that you don't want to have your entire vision blocked by pop-up ads and things like that, right? We've all seen that dystopic version of the future, right? The Blade Runners, where you're walking down the street and just all these virtual images bombard your vision. And I'm just picturing what the equivalent of that is in information that's actually still useful, but it's getting in the way. So how do you and other companies like your own kind of manage that line, walk the line between giving users stuff that's good and information they need versus just being way too over the top and not letting them see stuff?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And that's also one of the most common asked questions from firefighters because they definitely don't want to be distracted. So what we figure is we will provide several different modules, different set of data, and some modules can be showing only really minimum data that is not going to block them at all. And when they need more information, they can switch to another module. So the judgments will be from them as opposed to the system, because there are some hardware limitations that if we were to make the judgment for them, there could be some failure points. So for now, we leave it to the user themselves. It's like using mobile phones, right? When there are so many different apps people can download and use, you're not challenging those software companies saying, hey, by providing so many mobile softwares, people are going to use them when they are walking on the street. If they get so addictive, they use that when they probably should not. that's kind of their responsibility. So we will definitely work with the users, educate them what those modules are. How can we show the data set in different modules based on their behavior, and work with training with them. But at the end of the day, they will make the call when to use it, when to turn it off, when to switch modules.
Doing a drill could help with that, where you're going through the whole scenario yourself and seeing those pop-ups and learning what volume and what type, and whoever's in the control room as well, managing everything, that could possibly change things. I think one of the benefits that comes to light for me is there are a lot of emergencies that come about that are very loud, and audio has been traditionally the only way that first responders communicate with each other. And when you're in a situation that's very loud, the audio can't get through. And so having that video and being able to be communicated with in a situation that's where you can't use sound, I think could be an extra layer of helpfulness.
Yeah.
What's a typical battery life on the devices in general right now?
So the One Eye Display AR headset we're currently using is actually connected to your cell phone. So the battery life will depend on your phone. It's completely powered by the cell phone.
Okay. Yeah, but I agree with what Stephanie was saying. Adding that new sense that we haven't used in an emergency situation could save lives. Have you had an experience, or has anyone told you a situation where they did experience loud sounds, or they couldn't find somebody because they didn't have that capability that you're trying to provide? Like, did anyone say, "Oh, I wish I had that during this hurricane"?
So pretty much the first responders I've talked to, they haven't really pictured themselves having heads-up display because they didn't know that the technology is there. So when we showed them, they just wowed at it, and some of them were even wordless. They were like, so many things could have been changed, and we could have worked way more efficiently if we just see the map, see everyone's geo tags. Because the state of art is they need to explain where they are, and the world is in 3D. And especially when you're working in a remote area, it's not like, oh, I'm at the intersection of 4th Street and Cambridge Street. It's not that easy to describe. So when they realize that there's something called AR, it's not blocking your view as much, but provide you with so many data points immediately and almost constantly, they think it's really useful.
That's actually really interesting. I think that AR is one of those technologies that's taken a long time to kind of diffuse into the popular consciousness. It's something that's been around for a while. I mean, the technology has been around since the early 90s, at least the very, very basic versions with military heads-up displays. And you've seen it in Google Glass, right? But we're kind of gotten used to it being something you put on your face, at least in our imagination, not thinking about the fact that it's something you have on your phone all the time. I mean, there's a bunch of apps for your phone that do the same thing. And there's also now they're playing around with the idea of, or not playing around, but they're coming out with heads-up displays for your car, where you can put it on your dashboard, and your dashboard itself will populate your windshield with just information about where you're going, your speed, all this stuff, so you don't never have to look down when you're driving. And that's really interesting, seeing that we're kind of heading more towards implementing it in ways that are not the traditional Google Glass kind of vision we have for it. So do you have any ideas of kind of where you think the industry is going, and what you think is really interesting, what you think are some very interesting applications you see coming down the pipeline?
So I think eventually all the search you have to do on the daily basis will be done through your AR glasses. So you don't need to look away. Say if you are going to search for a company's information during a business meeting, you don't have to not pay any attention to the presenter. You can do the search while still looking at that presentation, still look at that PowerPoint. You just look away for like 1 second and look back to that slide, and you can compare maybe the information is different. You can compare the both, and you can still make eye contact with the presenter. So it's keeping you present much more than mobile devices. So, and also eventually AR and VR are going to merge. With one headset, you can say, oh, today I want to watch a movie at the beach. And you turn the VR mode on, and suddenly you feel like you were at the beach watching a movie. You don't have to own a perfect big screen. You can watch that in VR. And after you're done with the movie, you want to like do some research online, and then you switch to the AR mode. So while you're like taking care of your housework or running some errand, you can still have that information feeding you.
Right, that's like what you'd call that is mixed reality, right? Both like VR and AR kind of together. And I know that Microsoft has a version of those types of glassware called HoloLens. Have you worked with HoloLens or tested it out?
Yeah, we actually started our development with HoloLens, and we built a hardware unit to enable the GPS functions we expect officers will really need. And because HoloLens is kind of bulky, so we don't want to give first responders a wrong idea. We're expecting you to wear this bulky stuff. So I actually decided to purchase an absent AR glasses. It's less bulky, but still too bulky for first responders. But at least they are not going to just shy away from it, not talking to us. So I did a demo with that, and then do more research on what will be the most ideal AR headset for first responders. And eventually we found 615, which is an AR headset manufacturers that already sold more than 100,000 units to the military. They provide a one-eye display AR headset. It's really durable, rugged, and we are talking to them to integrate our system.
Wow. 100,000 units. That seems like a lot, actually.
Another way to see AR is that there is one-way augmented reality and two-way augmented reality. So the older augmented reality that has existed for some time is this one way, like as simple as like superimposing some type of tattoo or background when you're in a video call, or something where you can, Pokemon Go, this is one-way AR, where you see the world with some superimposed graphics. But then when you think of two-way AR, where you can actually superimpose in an environment and the person on the other side also sees what you are superimposing on the environment, all of a sudden you have this two-way communication that's augmented for both parties, even if they're in different locations and contexts, which I think is a really interesting development, because then you're dealing with communication instead of just an augmenting the reality of one person. I think of another example of one-way AR is on TV programs when they're televising football games, U.S. football games, and they superimpose the first down line so that obviously the players are not seeing that. They know where the first down line is because they're professionals and they're playing the game. But for those who are watching, the program kind of shows through the screen that line. But then you imagine, well, two-way AR would be something like seeing the players having headsets and seeing that line, or seeing something that you at home are also seeing. That really creates a crazy extra dimension to augmented reality, and really opens up a new future for augmented reality. And I think first responders that's a great example of that, because they're communicating with each other and they could possibly be seeing the same thing.
Yeah, that's actually, it's going to be interesting seeing where the technology goes. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, and more about the cultural impact of AR and where we might be going as a society thanks to it, or maybe despite it, in the second half. So stick around, and thank you again to Kari Wu, who will continue to be here to talk about this wonderful and interesting topic. We'll be right back.
Screen Door Labs created AR Rescue, an augmented reality team communication software for boots on the ground. Built for first responders, the system organizes and displays data onto AR glasses. First responders have access to 2D and 3D maps, as well as geotags and video feeds from drone operators and other responders. AR Rescue allows first responders to work safer, respond faster, and communicate better as a team. We are learning from a wide range of firefighters. If you or someone you know is a firefighter who would be interested in talking with us and providing us with feedback on our demo, please email us at info@screendoorlabs.com. That's info@screendoorlabs.com. Or you can leave a message on our Facebook by searching Screen Door Labs.
Welcome back, Piffles. At the top half, we talked a little bit about the growing industry of AR and where the technology is going. And during the commercial break, Ray mentioned that he had some questions. So, Ray, what did you want to ask?
Well, I was just actually curious. So, thinking about the industry and multiple companies trying to get into it. We talked about Google Glass. We mentioned it briefly, but there's also a company called Magic Leap. And just like in 2015, there was a week where they filed 97 patents. They have, I think, over $2 billion in investment money from like Google, Alibaba, Qualcomm. Have you, what are they working on?
Actually, they just released something.
I know a lot of people are really skeptical what they can do today. And I am a little bit skeptical, but like their investors are not idiots either. So I think I'll be more comfortable like making comments after I try it. They are a company that is really great at marketing, and they just like do it. And it's kind of like Xiaomi, right? Like they just don't they don't produce a lot of units. So people start to talk about it and they release slightly more units. So to get that sense of, oh, it's popular. Magic Leap is kind of like that too. Oh, like we raised so much money, we're not going to tell you what we're working on. And the first time we show the headset, we only show you how it looked like. We don't show you how it works. And then you're gonna wait for another 2 weeks to get the SDK. Yeah. That's not the approach I prefer personally. Yeah.
So we talked about different ways that we can help, first responders and people in an emergency situation. But what about, in general, the interest of AR for police officers and maybe just surveillance?
Yeah, so in China, police officers are using it to scan license plate. So they will know, oh, this is a car that was stolen years ago, and they can check who was the car owner and what criminals could be related to this. It's very helpful, but also some people will worry a lot about the sense of privacy. Like officers will basically have a gut view of everything as long as they have a front-facing camera and the system maybe has some like machine learning or at least image recognition component in it.
Or facial recognition.
Yeah. And it's kind of scary for some people because once they have that AR glasses, whatever it can do, it only requires a software update. So it can be way more powerful with one software update, with one click.
Right, and it's not just the AR camera. You also have surveillance cameras that are stationary in like every corner as well. So that's going to feed into the entire field of vision. And then you'll have probably drones flying around. So potentially in the name of safety and security, we're giving away our privacy. What is your company's take on privacy?
So how should I answer this?
Take your time. We'll cut it.
So because it's a solution that aimed for saving people's life, so we want to make sure that only officers who have enough trainings, follow the standards obstacles, have a hands of it. And they will have to log into their personal account. So whatever they do with it, there's a record they have to be responsible for it.
And it definitely is an important answer. I mean, we're getting into a point where, and I mean, Ray, you allude to this, the idea of anyone that has one of these headsets doesn't have to be a police officer even. I mean, yeah, the police officer once in China may have more functionality and may be able to do way more stuff to you with that information. But just the idea of not knowing what the other person's doing behind the glasses. I mean, think about the hullabaloo that was formed a few years back when Google Glass was coming out. And people talked about, oh, you can take pictures without letting the other person know you're taking pictures of them. And that became a concern because obviously I don't want to be spied on and have the person that I'm sitting across from videotaping me without me knowing that I'm being videotaped.
But that's happening all the time now anyways with smartphones. I don't think it's that much of a shift.
With smartphones, you normally have to do, it's more noticeable. Right? If you like take out your smartphone and you're recording me, obviously I know you're recording me. If you like are holding a smartphone in front of my face. Similarly, like if you put it in your purse or something like that, like you won't get a good visual. But if it's your glasses and you have no idea what the other person's doing, I mean, they could just as easily be playing a game of tic-tac-toe as they are recording you.
Well, you also have the extra layer of a hacker could overtake a system and the person who is using, let's say, the Google Glass, they don't intend to take a picture, but somebody could be hacking the system or the software and be taking from a third party point of, through that pictures. And so you're dealing with an extra layer of privacy. Back in the day when telephones, when you'd call someone up and somebody would manually pull a cord and connect the two lines, it was very manual. And the more automated these systems become, this involves AR, but involves many different technologies. A hacker from any distance away, if they could get access, could kind of bring down a whole system. And so it's not just privacy concern, but I see it also as a security concern and a safety concern that if you have a digital system, somehow you can have a third party you don't even know, a hacker of sorts that gains access to whatever you're doing, whatever you're seeing, whatever is involved in this augmented reality experience.
Yeah, I feel like everything is a trade-off, especially in the era of in the 21st century, everything is digital. Say, for your online credit card account, you can check all your purchases history and see if you were overcharged. And you can log in into your account with all the devices you have. And you can even report scam with one click. All those conveniences also, to another side of the coin, it also potentially give away your privacy. If someone hack into the bank, in the bank system, they know everything about you. They know where you go, even which specific CVS you went to, and when. It's that precise. So, yeah, I definitely see that there's always a downside of all sorts of technology. The only question is, does the value the technology provides overweight the downside? And also to Louis' point earlier, when you record people with AR glasses, it's kind of scary, scarier compared to recording people with mobile phone, because when you hold a mobile phone, other people will kind of get a sense that you are recording something. That also depends on, in AR headset situation, it also depends on which headset are you talking about, right? Like if it's a HoloLens, like people will know you have the ability to record something. And for the one-eye display headset we're using, it's also very obvious that it comes with the front-facing camera.
I could be mistaken, but actually, Google Glass, which I had assumed was dead. I had assumed Google Glass was dead and gone away, and no one was talking about it anymore. It's still around. It's just specifically for companies now. There's like an enterprise edition or whatever. And I believe, and we will put it in the notes if I am wrong, but I believe that they changed the feature so that now there's either a light or some sort of signal that you're recording something whenever you try to record something with Google Glass, because obviously people were not happy about that. It is a very scary feature. And if people are going to be instantly wary of you when you wear the product, you may not want to wear the product.
I actually bought a Google Glass when it first came out. They offered it to me because I had a Google Play account and a Google Music account or whatever, and it didn't have the red dot. It was an option to turn it off, actually. But I returned it after a while. I realized I'm not a developer and the battery here sucks, so I returned it. $1,500. Kept it for 2 weeks. I'd buy it again, though.
Wait, what?
Well,
I buy it.
I feel like 5 years later, it's gotten a lot better.
And there are also other great products out there.
True. But it was sleek, It was not very, obtrusive. And I think that's going to be part of the future is fashionable AR glasses. It's not just going to be what can it do, but how does it look? Like if you think about smart watches, it's not just what can it do, how does it look? It's also a pretty important part of the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wearables
maybe not for
have had that as a struggle.
I mean, I think we think about augmented reality from the consumer point of view because we're consumers and it's easy. I find, Kari, your startup really interesting because it's an enterprise startup. You're looking at these governmental and corporate organizations that really need to leverage in these sorts of scenarios that you've described in the augmented reality. What do you think about the future of AR when it comes to, enterprise versus consumer? I think of the computer that started off with corporate users because it was so expensive. A computer filled an entire room, and then now it's consumers have used it. Whereas the bulk of augmented reality development is toward gamers now, and the corporate use isn't as much.
I believe you might be
VR.
That's more VR, I would say, than AR. Yeah, Kari.
I'll have to find the source for this because now
Goldman Sachs.
Oh, I think you are talking about mobile AR. Yes, mobile AR is pretty much gaming focus as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of consumer focus in augmented and virtual reality, but the corporate, I guess sometimes we just don't hear about it corporate as much, but it seems like it's harder to adopt AR into a corporate setting. Maybe there's not as much buy-in. What is your thought on that, Kari? Why do you think?
I think, thinking from an entrepreneur's perspective, it's kind of easy to picture your friends and family using any consumer products. So a lot of applications are related to people's life. And that being said, if there are some people, they really understand a specific industry or are well connected within that industry, they can create something really, really niche. And the value proposition is so clear that even though AR headset is kind of pricey today, they're still willing to pay for it.
Right, and you can imagine that as these developers early on get started, they're going to have an advantage, a competitive advantage in the future because they're already going to have the software. And as the technology gets cheaper and the hardware gets better, they're already well prepared to, deliver into the marketplace. So that's kind of what you're doing now. It's like you're starting early. Sure, it's more difficult, and you don't have all the tools that you would like, but you're way ahead of a lot of other people. So when the technology does develop, you'll be in the lead.
Yeah, echoing that, we are very excited to do more testing and learn from the data we collect, learning from the user's behavior, because there are gyroscope accelerometers and AR headset, even how much you turn your head and how we show the objects can make you feel very comfortable. That's an art. That's more a design problem, but the technical data, the data set you collect can actually feed into that.
Yeah, I just had a few questions about the company specifically. So how big is the team currently?
So currently we have 3 people, and we also have some people who are interested in working with us, but we are bootstrapping. We don't have tons of resources, even though we're looking for fundraising, but we haven't get there yet. So we're keeping the relationships and also on the other hand, talking with hardware providers and figure out how much do they want to integrate with our system, and could there potentially be a strategic investments into the company. So it really depends on when exactly do we get more resource, and then we can expand the team.
So you're thinking like, to have device manufacturers potentially be investors, but also are you looking at more traditional VCs? Are you looking at police or firefighter groups or municipal organizations to maybe help fund initially the venture? I mean, I guess traditionally that'd be difficult to do for like a city to fund a startup, but
yeah. So under that thought, it's probably more like grant related. If the government money or competition, we want a relevant government competition. Is actually navigating firefighters in a VR environment with heads-up display. So a lot of our learning took over to that competition. And after the competition, we built even more connections with first responders, learning more from them. That was helpful. But yeah, like you said, traditionally, they're not going to invest in a startup and taking equity like traditional VCs do. And we are actually part of 2 startup programs here in LA, and these program directors, program managers are helping us to build connections with VCs and also angels.
So you said you're part of these 2 accelerator programs, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the more recent one, I actually read online that you were a part of. Tell me more about what they're offering you and how you're going to be able to work in that community to really like move faster, because accelerator programs are really interesting for me. I think people, especially for new technologies like AR, is it focused on AR? Tell me more about that.
Ray, could you describe what an accelerator program is for our audience?
Sure. So an accelerator program in general, usually it's both a community and organization that helps startups get started. So let's say you have an idea or you have a small team and you want to pursue a company. So these organizations will help you find not only investors, but they'll also help you find advisors and help you connect with potentially manufacturers or technology providers in order to really get started. And the founders and the team doesn't have to waste their time finding those partners. They can use the accelerator to connect with the right people much more quickly.
Well, and the difference between that and just any type of mentorship is that an accelerator program is cohort-based usually. And it's like everybody starts at the same time and ends at the same time so that they can help each other in those phases rather than people coming in and out. And
that's true. And also you have the ability potentially to, some accelerators it's a competition. So towards the end, you'll have a pitch competition. The winners might get basically free money, no attachment. Some of them are more investment type where there is some sort of equity involved. But yeah, I'm just curious about how yours is set up.
And I have to say, as just an interruption, I have to say that Kari is very talented and has lots of experience with pitching all sorts of really interesting ideas. And so she's had an entrepreneurial mind for as long as I've known her. And so it's really interesting to hear about this startup, Screen Door Labs, because it's only one of many very successful, interesting ideas and projects she's been involved in. And that's why having her as a guest is much more meaningful. So that's just my little pitch for how cool Kari is. So I'm excited to hear. Yeah.
You're here.
Yeah. Just earlier I was chatting with Louise that today I joined a presentation training at this accelerator based in LA in Santa Monica, the Silicon Beach. So they have this trainings once a while, and it's not just about pitching. It could be involve building your financial models or go-to-market strategies. How do you do business development? And sometimes they will have lunch with VCs. So they invite investors come in telling you about their investments, what the criteria they are looking for in startups, what sort of connections or communication they are expecting from you. and you build that level of relationship with them. So once you're raising fund, they're there. It's not like cold calling or sending out email when the other side don't have an idea of who you are. The programs we're in, they also provide 6 to 9 month co-working space. So like Stephanie talk about how entrepreneurs can chat with each other, build that relationships, and introduce their own connections to each other to really build up each other's startups. That has been really beneficial for us so far. Like last week, another entrepreneur, she's working on a mobile payment software company specifically for refugees. And you would think it's not anywhere related to what we're doing, right? But she happened to know the CEO of an AR headset company. And that headset company, starting from only working on hardware and realizing that software is critically important to show people what AR can do. So she introduced us to him. We schedule a meeting, learn from his learning for the past 2 to 3 years. That was so insightful that without being in this accelerator program with this entrepreneur, it probably will take us way longer to get to know this person and sit down and have that conversation.
That's awesome. How that's the power of an accelerator is and these kinds of programs is you're put into this small space together, even if it's not a physical small space, it's some sort of
yeah.
You're put in close quarters and these magical connections happen.
Yeah, especially I'm originally from Taiwan and went to school in Boston. Here in California, I don't have super strong connections like a lot of entrepreneurs do. So I feel like being in an accelerator really help us kind of make up that weakness.
Nice.
Well, Kari, for the listeners who've been following along and are interested in following the adventures of you and your company, Screen Door Labs, where can they find you?
Yeah, our official website is screendoorlabs.com, and you can always check our Facebook as well. Just type in Screen Door Labs, SCREEN, Door, DOOR, Labs, LABS.
All right, that sounds great. And I'm going to be for sure following you guys along on your adventures. And for any of you out there, I recommend checking out Kari and her company, Screen Door Labs. And thank you for joining us, Kari. It's been wonderful talking to you about AR and the past, future, and present of the market, and a little bit about entrepreneurship and making a startup. So thank you again for being here. Thank you, Piffles and listeners, for being with us. You can find us at pflpodcast.com.
Kari, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. We learned a lot, and hopefully our listeners did as well.
Thank
you again for joining us, Kari. So thank you very much for joining us this week. And as always,
stay crazy.